So, hi guys, it's Tamara Hill here. I want to introduce to you a new project that I am working on, and my new project is a second book. My first book was published in 2014, and now I am publishing in 2018. And so the book's publication date is May 1st, 2018, and it is written primarily for two groups, parents and teachers. The topic is adolescent suicide. And the whole purpose of my book is to kind of provide some tools, some very basic and practical tools with a trauma focus, as well as just a very practical and general set of techniques for parents and teachers to communicate with their adolescents about suicide. So I'm going to introduce the book to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about each chapter in the coming weeks. So I'm going to be breaking down the book into various chapters, and you will have access to those. So I really hope that this book kind of opens up a new topic for us and something to kind of pick and pull apart and learn more about together. So this particular video, I'm going to focus on introducing the book to you and talking about chapter 1, which is a little bit of a general overview of the topic of adolescent suicide. I'll also give you some information on each chapter and what you can expect to see in the book. So let me show you the book. I am currently editing, which is so awesome because my team of supporters are just so wonderful. And so they're helping me edit this thing and really get it prepared. So let me show you. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. All right. So this is the book. This is the book cover. And of course, the words are upside down because my camera is weird. But this is what it looks like. Okay. This is what it looks like, your typical paperback book. And the title is Understanding and Helping Suicidal Adolescents, or suicidal teens, I should say. Therapeutic strategies for parents and teachers from a trauma therapist. And I think the whole idea behind this book is to give parents and teachers some information about what to expect with a suicidal adolescent, with, as I stated earlier, with a foundation of trauma tools. So let's go ahead and jump into what the book is about. So this book includes a lot of information. It really is information overload. And so every reader is going to have to really dedicate almost an hour maybe to get through each of these chapters. Each chapter is based on my clinical experience. It's also based on the field of psychotherapy. It's based on the field of psychiatry. It's also based on a lot of trauma principles, but I don't introduce the trauma principles until chapter 6. And that's when you're going to see me talking about things like the self model. I hate to say this, but I'm not a big fan of the sanctuary model of trauma-informed care. But there's a few principles that I appreciate and I think would be very practical for parents to use. You're going to also get some simple instructions as a parent and as a teacher of how to communicate with that teenager who is feeling suicidal, who's feeling helpless. So, let's see, in chapter 2, I think chapter 2 is where I kind of get you guys started. Chapter 1 talks about the numbers, it talks about the statistics, it talks about suicide affecting various groups of people. It also talks about opening your mind to the suicide rate among adolescents and knowing that it's just not African American youths, it's not just Caucasian youths who are dealing with suicidal thoughts, but it's also Native American youths and Hispanic Hispanic youths as well. And I think that we forget sometimes that a lot of other cultures are dealing with suicide as well. It's not just Americans. It's not just African American kids and Caucasian kids. It really is other groups of kids. In fact, my family, we are basically split down the middle. We are the actual definition of multicultural. My family has a Native American heritage, and I'm from the Cherokee group, of course, or tribe. And it's interesting because when I have done research studies in the past, I have actually spoken to people who have lived on a plantation growing up. And one of the things that I learned is that most Native Americans are typically hidden from society. They have their own plantation, their own rules. There are some islands and some places that are very hard to get to. You literally have to have a plane to get to where the plantation is. So in situations like this, or in situations like that, I should say, dealing with a suicidal adolescent is really difficult because most of the prevention resources are given to the wider society. It is not given to those individuals who live on a plantation hidden. Are there resources for them? Absolutely. Are there not enough resources? Absolutely. So I talk a little bit about that, and you'll see between chapter 1 and chapter 5 that I talk a little bit about different cultures and how suicide affects them. All right, so that is chapter 1, and I'm kind of giving you an idea of what I think parents need. I'm also giving you an idea of what I think teachers need, what I think adolescents need, based on what I have gone through or based on my clinical experience. And so I talk a little bit about, what I think you guys are looking for, so parents and teachers and adolescents as well who are suicidal. Okay. Chapter 2 is when we start getting into the meat, right? We talk a little bit about why adolescents turn to suicide. There really is no consensus in the field of psychotherapy as to why adolescents consider suicide. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why an adolescent feels the need to take their lives. We can't figure that out necessarily just by sitting in a session and asking a kid, is there any reason why you wanted to kill yourself? There are a lot of reasons, and so it's hard to narrow those reasons down. So what I do, based on my clinical experience in the past, what I do in this book is I give you the common triggers to suicide. So I talk a little bit about some of the things that our kids are going through, such as challenges with peer groups and challenges with keeping up academically, poor or no connection with parental figures, challenges with home life, such as divorce and abuse and neglect, domestic violence, poorly treated parental mental health. I also talk about depression, anxiety, and other mental health conditions that are untreated as being a trigger to suicide, low self-esteem and self-worth, obesity, heart conditions, and other medical conditions. Bullying, teens who are struggling with self-injurious behaviors, like cutting, things like that. So as you will see in chapter 2, there's a lot to talk about, and so I just cover the basics, and I try to give you guys a little bit of an overview of what to expect when you talk to a teenager who is suicidal. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I've been talking all day, and I swear my throat is just saying, shut up already. Okay, so that's what I'm focusing on in chapter 2. You'll also see I will talk about passive death wishes, and I'll give you guys a couple examples in that chapter of what a passive death wish is. And I try to break it down for parents and teachers because they aren't familiar with the terminology of psychiatry or psychotherapy. So I focus on what a direct and indirect statement is, what a passive death wish is, what a direct suicidal threat is. I also talk about thinking errors, which are skewed ways that we think about things. So concepts such as black and white thinking, right? Polarized thinking. You're either all good or all bad, or all funny or not funny at all, right? There's no in between. So I talk about, the influence that kind of thinking has on teenagers, and how that can lead to suicidal thoughts as well. I also talk about kids who are struggling with existential questions or nihilistic thoughts. So kids who are asking adults, what is this life all about? Kids who are asking nihilistic questions like, is it okay if I die? Or is it okay if I killed myself? Like, why should anybody care? Or why is it that the world is ending soon? I once had an adolescent say to me, with a nihilistic kind of a viewpoint, she says, Miss Tamara, I honestly don't think life is worth living because we're all going to die anyway, and I'm not doing good in school. My mom's in a very abusive relationship. I don't see life working out for myself. I don't want to go through school, and I don't want to get through school, so I'd be better off dead, don't you think? And that question stumbled me. That statement stumbled me, because how do you answer that, right? So, interestingly, and I think this is what sets my book apart from other books, I think that parents and teachers are going to love the activities that I provide. And the activities are created by myself. They are not copies of anything else in the field of psychotherapy. They are actually my own activities. And I give you an activity in chapter 2. I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 activities. It gives you the opportunity to test your knowledge. So I talk about thinking errors, and then I give you a place where you can actually decide or guess what kind of thinking error the example is talking about. So it kind of gives you some practice. It awakens your mind to pinpointing what you're listening to or thinking about, or what somebody is saying to you. And my whole goal in doing that is trying to help you identify when your teenager is struggling. So I give you practice tools in the book using worksheets to help you identify what's going on with your kid or your student. So, and here's just like a little bit of an example of what I give you. Okay, so I give you the question, and I give you some lines to answer that question. And the whole goal is to give you something to kind of, talk about in here, jot your notes down, practice. So then I also talk about suicidal ideation with or without a plan. And so this chapter is to help parents learn what a suicide plan is and what it isn't, what to look for and what not to look for. I also talk about what we all should know about teens who are considering suicide. And this is just based on my own experience, and also talking to and surveying other teens and other programs that I have worked in. And some examples of what I talk about here is, how can I pose this to you? So I kind of give you guys some pointers, and then I explain to you what I think we should really focus on when we're thinking of adolescent suicide. And here's some examples that most teens want to talk about it. Most teens are not interested in shoving this stuff under a rug. They want to talk about it. The other part is self-injurious behaviors do not always mean that a kid wants to kill him or herself. So statements like that I make, and then I give you my argument in hopes of kind of getting you to psychologically work through it, right? Ask yourself some questions. Just because my kid cuts, does that really mean that they want to die, right? Or just because I'm nervous about talking about suicide, does that mean my teen is too? So this part of the book kind of stimulates your own thoughts about this particular topic. Okay, and so chapter 2 is a brief overview. It kind of gets you charged for what's next. So that's what you would find in chapter 2 of my book here. And stay tuned, because the next podcast is going to the next audio blog, I should say, or video blog, is going to focus on chapter 3. And I think a lot of you are going to like chapter 3. So feel free to go to my website at anchoredinKnowledge.com or my blog at blogs.psychcentral.com/caregivers, and send me a message there. Is there something that you want me to talk about? Is there a topic that you want me to cover? I'm always happy to get feedback from you and talk to you. So let me know if there's anything that you want to talk about. Send me an email. Send me an audio message at the front of my website, anchoredinKnowledge.com, at the very bottom. And I look forward to talking to you. All right, guys. Bye.